The Birdcage Theater in Tombstone, Arizona is an iconic building and a large part of the mythic landscape of Tombstone. It's an unassuming old building that shows its age beautifully and holds a treasure trove of legendary stories straight out of a dime novel or pulp magazine. It has been called the wildest, wickedest night spot between Basin Street and the Barbary Coast. Stories told here talk about ladies of the night plying their trade in the boxes near the stage, gunfights where men died instantly or bled out on the floor while body entertainment continued, a madame who doubled as a bouncer who picked up an unruly guest and threw him out the door, an 8-year-long poker game or $10 million passed hands with the house, taking 10% with Bat Masterson in attendance. A woman named Fatima, known as Little Egypt, who was a belly dancer, gifted the owners a self-portrait that is now displayed prominently in the entrance of the Birdcage Theater. She is one of the first things you see when you walk in, and the painting has a knife slash and bullet holes in the canvas due to one of the Birdcage's wild nights. So many extraordinary stories, and all of them are true. Or are they? Sometimes the history that is told or shown to us is not always what it seems. And the Birdcage Theater is one of those places where the myth has completely overshadowed the truth. To cover the Birdcage Theater thoroughly, both its legends and truths, I am going to be breaking this into a few parts. I know, multi-part series in this economy, but trust me, it's worth it. This episode is going to be focusing basically on how this place came to be and the stories of its various owners, both the myth and truth versions. The archives are waiting. We start where all legends start, at the beginning. The story goes that Lottie and William Bill Hutchinson bought and opened the Birdcage Theater in 1881 with the idea of turning it into a theater for large shows and where the wealthy women of Tombstone would go for ladies' night. Bill Hutchinson was a variety show performer, and he intended to put on wholesome, family-friendly shows like what he had performed in the scene in San Francisco. Tombstone had only been founded 4 years prior and was well on its way to becoming a boom town of the frontier. Things didn't quite go the way they expected. Families never showed up, nor did the wealthy women of Tombstone show up either. Instead, the theater was visited by miners who were looking for a different kind of entertainment, so the theater was turned into a saloon. The stage remained in the Great Hall, upstairs rooms were turned into a motel, and the basement was transformed into a poker area. Also, it was believed to be about a brothel. We'll come back to that later. Now to the true story. William and Lottie Hutchinson were both in the variety show performance business. Lottie was a highly skilled singer and actress, and William Hutchinson was known to be, as a Birdcage Theater customer put it, old a hand at the theater business, which suggests that he had been in or around variety theater circuits for a long time. The couple were highly regarded in their 4 years in Tombstone, but there were challenges. One of them was establishing the theater in the first place. To make a long story short, which is difficult for me because I never want to leave anything out, but for sake of time, because we would be here for hours if I really went into the details, there was essentially a property war between lot-owning citizens, a townsite company, which is a company that assumed rights to sell deeds to land, and a greedy mine owner named Ed Field. Now, if you want more details, my friend Michael Moholovic wrote a book about the Birdcage Theater and its history, and it is the primary source for these episodes. I'll put a link to it in the description of this video and following videos of the Birdcage Theater. It is a really good book. So, and as you can see, I have a bunch of notes. Now, after its construction was complete, Hutchinson started a theater that would have a 10-year run that would host more than 250 world-traveling entertainers that would bring their acts to the people of Tombstone. Some facts that have been skewed in media. Tombstone movie. And an oral history about the Birdcage Theater that I think you guys should know. In the movie Tombstone, the Birdcage Theater is shown as already established when the Earp brothers come into town. In reality, at that time, it was just a lot in town where a cabin was built and William Hutchinson lived there. In the scene where Curly Bill Brocious, played by Powers Booth, is firing his gun into the air in the Chinese part of Tombstone, high on opium, and ends up shooting Marshal Fred White, who is an older man in the film, and killing him instantly, that is highly inaccurate. First of all, Fred White was actually in his 20s when that incident happened, and he actually died 2 days later after clearing Curly Bill of any wrongdoing, stating the gun went off accidentally. Second, the lot where the theater was to be built later was actually the site of the accidental shooting of Fred White. William Hutchinson had purchased the lot and the cabin 3 months prior, and the shooting was directly behind the cabin. That is terrifying. Oh my goodness. Fred Dodge, a constable in Tombstone, gives an account of the shooting. When Morgan Earp and I and several others reached Wyatt, who was by the chimney of the cabin, the shooting was lively and the balls were hitting the chimney. Bullets, y'all. Get your mind out of the gutter. Then, Morgan, Fred, and Wyatt saw Curly Bill's gun go off and hit Fred White in the lower abdomen. Despite the removal of the bullet and the doctor stating he would be okay, Fred White's condition worsened and he passed away. So, now, due to the economic downturn in Tombstone at the time and his inability to sustain it, William closed the Birdcage Theater and he and Lottie left for good in the early months of 1884. Now, there is more, as there usually is when it comes to history, but we're going to move on to the other two owners of the Birdcage Theater. One of which time is forgotten, and the other whose wife and him have basically practically become cartoon characters, and has made her in particular into something she was absolutely not, which has me heated. So, this second owner, while he's been all but forgotten and is in no literature that I have seen about the Birdcage online or in print, except in my friend Mike's book, definitely revived it with the same lively spirit as the Hutchinsons did. Billy Sprague was a 31-year-old from Cornwall, England, who was very well liked. He did not have variety show experience, but he grew up around tin and copper mines, so he was well acquainted with mining town life. He worked as a miner, but then had the ambition to be a saloon owner. He quickly made friends and was recognized as a hard worker. One Tombstone newspaper stated, "There were few men in this city that have such a host of friends as old boy Billy." Aw, that's so sweet. In 1884, or perhaps even earlier, Billy began advertising performances at the Birdcage Theater. He was well loved, as were the performances there, but he had to hire more people to manage the theater due to his rapidly failing health. He had gotten tuberculosis, also known as consumption. Unfortunately, the theater didn't see much financial success despite the owner and performances being well liked, and by 1885 it closed again. That is where Joe Binion, and later his wife, came in. Joe Binion was, quote, a dashing dresser, spoke with a French accent, and was slight in stature. He was 5'3" and lean, but he was very much larger in life in ambition and personality. He was born in Montreal, Quebec, Canada, and according to some sources was part of traveling groups. He spent his early 20s around the port towns along Lake Michigan. He was an accomplished singer, acrobatic dancer, and a specialty clog dancer. He also traveled with 2 circuses. Impressive guy. Did he ever sleep? Probably not. In 1886, Joe made the Birdcage Theater his new ambition after he saw it during a trip and was determined to bring it back to life. Within literal days of leasing it from the owners at the time, not the Hutchinsons by the way, he arranged a full overhaul and it was fully renovated, reseated, and artistically decorated. He announced full-scale operations of the Birdcage Theater with new performances every week. He was determined to, quote, to run a legitimate variety show of the highest standard, according to a customer of the Birdcage Theater at the time. To achieve this goal of new variety performers every week, he hired a friend and his family who had run one of the circuses Joe had been with, and the rest of the circus actually would be the other acts that would be featured in the Birdcage Theater performances. Over the years, he got more performers to come and perform their acts. Singers, comedians, actors, songwriters, skit writers, acrobats, musicians. Oh my! Sorry, I had to. Gotta keep you on your toes. He also branched out and added wrestling and boxing. Yeah, that one surprised me too. He also featured a group of performing monkeys, apes, orangutans, and gorillas. He secured that particular act and several others in recruiting trips he would take. He did all of this during Tombstone's economic troubles and did fairly well, all things considered. In 1889, Joe got married to a woman whose legacy is so clouded by legend that it has taken over 100 years to tell her story. And that is where I'm going to end this. But don't worry, I'll be back to continue. And if you liked this episode, please click the little like button. And if you want to learn more about the untold stories of Tombstone, maybe you'd like to subscribe. It helps the channel grow, but no pressure. No pressure. You can find this channel and me on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. Just search Archival Silence. Until next time, take care of yourself, and I will see you soon. Now, if you want more details, my friend Michael Mahalovic, excuse me, I am awkward,